Hello dear crypto friends, and welcome to this video in which we are again trying to understand if Bitcoin has reached the bottom and what is probably going to happen within the next days. So the starting point, as always, our good old long-term weekly Bitcoin chart with the logarithmic regression model that we have here. And what do we see? Bitcoin is currently rebounding a bit. We have rebounded from the low at 17,600 and are currently sitting at 19,600. So this is already not so bad. I said in the last videos that I think the most likely target will be the moving average of 290 weeks at 17,100, and we have been to 17,600. So we have almost touched the weekly moving average 290. Why is this average so important? Well, because in the March 2020 low it has been touched, and in August 2015 it would have also been touched had the MA 290 existed back then. If we prolong this line, we see that very likely it would have touched it. So this is like the ultra strong long-term support of Bitcoin, in my opinion. So therefore I was thinking that it is very likely that we would touch this moving average, and we almost did, but not quite. So then, is this the bottom? Have we finally the worst behind us? Is it finally time to rejoice? Let us try to find out. Well, the first indicator is of course the volume, and the weekly volume looks not too bad, I have to say. The weekly volume looks not too bad. This weekly candle is already higher than this one here, and the day is not even over. The weekly candle close will be tonight, so this volume bar can rise even more until then, and we then will close among the highest weekly candles of the last years, probably almost as high as the one in the bottom of 2018. So this is already a very good sign. I am quite satisfied with the volume. The weekly volume indicates that the likelihood that this was the low is pretty high. But of course, there is just one indicator of many, and we have to look at a few more indicators. Now let's go into the 4-hour chart, friends. What do we see in the 4-hour chart? That is looking also pretty nice. We see that a nice 4-hour candle has formed. This is already pretty good. We see that the buying volume, the green bars, are finally starting to exceed the red bars, right? In the last day are finally exceeding the selling volume of the preceding day, which is already very nice because we want to see the buying volume exceed the selling volume in order to have a bit more confirmation that there's a trend change and that we are finally starting to go upwards. That is already nice. So we see the volume in the weekly chart looks already very promising. Also, the volume in the 4-hour chart looks very promising. Now, the daily chart does not yet look amazing, I have to say, but the day of course isn't over yet, so a lot can still happen, but the daily picture is more mixed currently. So the 4-hour chart and weekly chart looking good, mixed 1-day chart. Now going again to the 4-hour chart and looking at the RSI, this looks excellent. Now why does this look excellent? Because Bitcoin is in a falling trend channel, right? Falling trend channel, but the RSI is in a rising channel. Look at this. We have higher lows in the RSI, higher highs in the RSI, all the while here the price is falling, lower highs in the price, lower lows in the price. So what is that, of course, friends? Again, of course, a bullish divergence. A nice bullish divergence is forming in the 4-hour chart, and these bullish divergences normally are a pretty good sign for reversal. So if we manage to break now through this falling trend channel, I think we will manage to break through quite nicely, then this is already a good sign. Now, where will we have to close tonight in the weekly candle close to have even more confirmation that this was the low? Well, if we activate the moving average 200, right, then it would be nice to close the weekly candle in the vicinity of the moving average 200. If we go to the last lows where such a brutal dump occurred in March 2020, what happened? We closed slightly below the moving average 200. It was at 5,500 and we closed at 5,300. And in August 2015 also, right? we would have touched the MA 290, and where did we close? Very slightly below the moving average 200. That is where we closed. We had actually a few weeks where we closed slightly below the moving average 200. So as long as we don't close far away from the MA 200, I would take it as a good sign that we are recovering. So what we ideally would want to see tonight when the weekly candle closes is a close, I would say, at least 21,000. Okay, that is for me the lower limit. 21,000, better would be 21,500 and 22,000. So in this area somewhere, if we close tonight in this area, maybe, yeah, like this here, then for me this would be a good sign. If we close outside of this area, 21,000 and lower, that would be for me a bad sign. So let us hope that we will get a bit more rebound until tonight, until the weekly candle closes, ideally at 22,000, because that would be a pretty good sign that indeed this dump is over. Because the weekly RSI is still insanely low, let us not forget that we have actually really made new historical lows in the weekly RSI. Now sitting at 25, the previous lows were at 28 and 29. So this is incredible that we have made new historical lows in the RSI, absolutely unbelievable. Now interestingly, the RSI is still within this falling wedge pattern, right? The RSI has made a nice falling wedge pattern. If I just zoom in, look at this, this is incredible actually. We have actually touched the support line here at 25, and if we now rebound, there's a quite good chance that we might actually break through this descending RSI structure, because a falling wedge, as we know, is a bullish structure. So a falling wedge RSI structure is a bullish structure. So we could break out, and what would that mean for Bitcoin? Well, how would the future of Bitcoin look in the next weeks or months, right? If we recover now? Well, there are of course a few possibilities, and as I said previously, it will strongly depend of course on macroeconomic developments. Bitcoin is unfortunately not what it was 5, 6, 8, 9 years ago. Bitcoin is now very strongly correlated to the stock market, very correlated. So the correlation is now almost at 80% positive correlation. So it's following strongly the Nasdaq, it's following strongly the S&P 500. It is super correlated. So if now we will get a bounce in the Nasdaq, right? If the Nasdaq that has seen a brutal decline, a really brutal decline that is just being hammered, that has seen a 34% drop, just relentlessly falling without any correction. If the Nasdaq recovers in some form and we bounce upwards, that of course will mean that Bitcoin will also recover. If by some miracle, and I'm really talking about some miracle here, the Nasdaq recovers and we make new highs, we can be pretty sure that Bitcoin will also make new all-time highs. If the Nasdaq will now go lower, Bitcoin might bounce, but then it probably will also go lower, and 17,600 will not have been the low. I think a very likely scenario is that we will get some kind of bounce. I am not sure anymore if we can make a new high. I'm not sure about that. For that, really good stuff would need to happen in the world. A nice start would be, for example, the end of the Russia-Ukraine war, and on top, the end of the Chinese lockdowns. If those two things happen, I think we have some pretty good chances of seeing new highs. If that doesn't happen, friends, I think the chances are not so good that we will see new highs. We will see a recovery. Everything will look quite nice again, but then I think we will actually go lower again, and this has just then been a dead cat bounce. In that case, of course, Bitcoin would also do a dead cat bounce. So let's go back to Bitcoin and try to understand what Bitcoin would be doing in those cases. So if the Nasdaq now makes new all-time highs, we can assume the following will happen. Bitcoin will just rise and unexpectedly makes new highs and goes to quite insane prices that nobody would have thought possible. But I'm pretty sure that in March 2020, when Bitcoin was down at 3,900, nobody would have thought possible that a bit more than 1 year later, we would be at 65,000, right? Nobody would have thought that possible, and yet still it happened. So now we are at 20,000. So of course, no one thinks it possible that we will be at 150 or 200,000 1 or 1.5 years from now in the future. So that is how Bitcoin works. You think something is impossible and Bitcoin still does it. It is impossible that Bitcoin drops down to 15,000, and here we are almost going down to 15,000. It is impossible that Bitcoin will reach prices of over 50,000, people said 5 years ago, and we went to 69,000. It is impossible that Bitcoin will go to 200,000, and in a few years you just have to wait long enough. I'm pretty sure at some point Bitcoin will hit $200,000. It is just a waiting game with crypto, right? It is just like you wait and more people adopt Bitcoin, more institutions buy Bitcoin, more people flock into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is by nature a deflationary asset, so it's just a matter of time until Bitcoin will rise to prices that you have thought impossible, which is of course also given here nicely by this long-term logarithmic regression channel. So that is one possibility, that Bitcoin will make unexpectedly new highs. But if the Nasdaq makes a dead cat bounce now, as I've drawn before, we can be sure that Bitcoin will recover in some form. Everything will look nice again. People will say, wow, cool, we are going to new all-time highs. And then bam, we revisit again this lower part of the long-term logarithmic channel. And we could indeed drop again as low as 26,000 even by June next year. That is how crazy Bitcoin actually is. We could go up now to 65,000 again and drop down into the 20,000s if the Nasdaq and the stock market will do a dead cat bounce. If now the worst case scenario happens and the Nasdaq and the stock market drops lower without meaningful bounces, then the best we can hope for is that Bitcoin recovers a bit, and that when the Nasdaq continues dumping, Bitcoin will dump a second time and make a double low. That is the best we can hope for, hitting again the same area at around 17,000 and then recovering, staying flat for a while, and then at some point this whole bear market thing will be over in 2024, friends. Let us not forget, we will have the halving, so we will wobble around here. It will be suppressed price action. We could still be as low as 33,000 by December 23, and then at some point in 2024 the halving will come and will free us from this brutal bear market. So these are the three scenarios that I see right now. Stock market, dead cat bounce. In that case, we could at least see a nice rally to the 60,000, 55,000 area for Bitcoin before it drops lower again into the 20,000s. Or the Nasdaq stock market out of nowhere, because suddenly the world situation improves magically. We cannot know for sure, right? White swan events are also possible, not only black swan events. Then of course Bitcoin will recover and go over 100,000, possibly as high as $200,000 sometime in 2023. Or the worst case scenario that I have drawn here. These are the things that I foresee happening, but as of right now I think there's a high likelihood that this has been indeed the low. If I look at the weekly volume, if I look at the 4-hour volume, if I look at the 4-hour chart and I see bullish divergences all over the place, I think the likelihood that 17,600 has been the low is over 50%, maybe in the ballpark of 70%. If we are lucky, we will go now to higher prices, and as I said, let us hope that the stock market will at least recover in some form. Then we might actually see some relief rallies taking place. And this might be a nice opportunity to at least realize some profits, some gains before there might be a second dip. I will of course make daily updates and keep you updated on the situation, how this will develop, if this will be a dead cat bounce, if we will go lower again, or if indeed this will transform into a nice new unexpected bull market that nobody has seen coming, the same way that almost nobody foresaw this year happening. Thanks a lot, friends, for watching. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe to this channel, because as I said, I make daily updates on the crypto market, on Bitcoin, and on Bitcoin's correlation to the stock market, and trying to take into account macroeconomic developments and indicators so that we can get a clear picture of what Bitcoin will likely do. Have a nice day, friends, and see you in the next update video tomorrow. Bye!